From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And
things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us.
Deliver us.
Hey there, spooks and spookettes, Count Rahoon here, and tonight I present to you another edition of Attack of the Movies. Tonight I'm going to talk about Sam Raimi's latest survival horror flick, Send Help, which has done pretty well in the box office this year. As a matter of fact, we're recording this in March, and I still think it's actually playing in theaters, which is a rarity nowadays. But anyway, before I begin, let's take care of the castle-keeping notes. If you love Count Rahoon Presents and you're watching this video, let me just say thank you. If you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to take your support a little step further, might I invite you to become a patron on my newly relaunched Patreon page. We have just 2 tier levels that aim to please and won't break the bank. For $1 a month, you will get an exclusive video that's only available for our patrons, and each video is going to be different. Every video, I am going to take a comment or a user-suggested topic in which I will make an entire video about, whether that's certain thoughts I have on different movie franchises, whether or not I was actually born in Transylvania, or whether or not it's appropriate to give a werewolf a bath. You will find out if you pledge $1 a month, and I will talk about those topics specifically for you. For $5 a month, you get that plus exclusive access to my private Discord server, and you will have your name put at the credit of each one of my videos once, of course, you start subscribing. So consider giving, if you can. And now that that's out of the way, let's get into the heart of the matter, and hopefully you won't feel the need to drive a stake through it. So the basic plot to Send Help revolves around Rachel McAdams' character, Linda, who's been working at this consulting firm for many, many years, and she firmly believes that she is in line for a vice president slot in the company now that the previous owner has died and has left the company to his son. Well, unfortunately, she gets passed up, even though she is highly competent at her job. Instead, she gets passed over by one of the new owner's frat boyfriends. So he's basically trying to make his father's empire into his own personal boys' club, but he sort of gives Linda a half-hearted second chance by inviting her to a trip to Thailand that they have to take in order to secure this big account that they need for their firm. While checking out Linda's cringy Survivor audition tape, something goes awry with the plane, and of course it crashes. So Linda and the new boss are the only 2 people that actually survived, and the new boss, of course, is injured. This makes Linda really the only person within a 3,000-mile radius who knows what to do. So I mentioned a second ago that she had at some point auditioned for the reality TV show Survivor. Not only is she a big fan of the show, but in preparation for that, she has read tons and tons of books on the subject of surviving in the wild and surviving after a deadly crash like this. So immediately once they get to shore, she goes to work. She builds shelter, she starts going after food, she starts addressing her boss's wound, and after a while she starts to get the hang of it. As her boss is kind of coming to, he realizes that he's sort of useless, and he has to completely rely on Linda's survival skills. And he's got a bit of an ego problem, so it just doesn't bode well. But she's coming into her own, and she's looking much more attractive and she's got a lot more confidence, so she's not afraid to wield it, so to speak. But after a while, Linda decides that she just doesn't want to leave the island. She really loves it here, and she feels like she's sort of found her place in the world, especially now that she's going to have to go back to the office and basically work at her desk job with no chance of moving up like she thought she had. But the new boss, he starts to catch on, and he tries to sort of charm her into a false sense of security so that he could basically incapacitate her or kill her and try to escape. But of course, he can't get far because he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm just going to leave it there because I don't want to go into spoiler territory. I will say, though, that there is a great twist in the third act of the film that makes this whole movie worth watching. And there's really not many cons to this movie. This was a pretty superb movie. Sam Raimi is in tip-top form. This movie is a little different than an Evil Dead and a Drag Me to Hell, in the sense that it's a lot more grounded in reality compared to those other films. But he is still able to lace his shocks with humor. And I would argue that this is probably a much more cerebral kind of movie than he's ever made before. I'll get into that in just a second, but just a few of the cons, if any, really. I just didn't like the digital effects. You know how your count is. I much prefer practical effects, and, there's a scene where Linda kills a boar in the wild. She kills the animal in order to roast it. She really comes into her own in this one. I would have much rather have seen an animatronic pig instead of one that was digital. But I kind of expected this because it was a sort of bigger budget movie, and when you're working with a major studio, you have to make compromises, and I'm sure that you still have to cut costs in some respects, so this was probably something that Sam Raimi had to do. Of course, I'm not even sure if he lobbied to have practical effects in this movie at all. But anyway, that's really more or less the only gripe that I have with the movie. Now, I will say there was one issue that I had watching the movie that was very quickly resolved towards the end of the movie. But I was afraid that there was going to be a hole in the logic of the storytelling. And what I mean by that is you have Linda, who is the survivalist expert, and she's doing a really good job keeping her boss alive, keeping him fed, keeping herself fed, keeping them safe in this climate that they're not really used to. And so part of me was thinking, well, if I was the boss, I would barter with her and say, okay, listen, we're not going to tell anybody what happened on this island because I don't want anybody to think that I was a wuss and that I was useless. So here's what we're going to do. When we get back to the States, I'm going to hire you as my VP. You'll have whatever you want. Just don't ever tell the truth about what happened. And I think that would have been reasonable. But then you realize as the movie goes on into the third act, he's actually not rational. Well, he's rational up to a point, I should say. But the problem with this new boss is that, he's a bit of a spoiled brat. So he definitely has some sort of ego issue. I won't go so far as to say that he has some sort of mental disorder, but he's definitely a very arrogant person. His ego is too large. So when you think about it in that context, you can't really barter with somebody that's essentially a narcissist. Once their pride is too hurt, there's no rationalizing with them. So when you think about it in those terms, it actually makes sense as to why this man is so wounded at the fact that his underling is thriving in this harsh environment and he is not. So his ego was too hurt for him to sort of cut any deals or just to kind of enjoy the ride, as it were, because they were They really had the best of the worst situation. Of course, I say that, knowing full well the big twist towards the end of the movie. And now, I'm going to go into basically everything else, why I think you should go see Send Help as soon as you can. For one thing, Rachel McAdams' performance is amazing. I'm a fan of Rachel McAdams. I, of course, know her from her past roles in The Notebook and in Mean Girls. This was a very different kind of character for Rachel McAdams. And I say that because, usually, I know that this isn't every movie that she's done, but Rachel McAdams is typically cast in an attractive light in her films. And in this one, the cringe is so palpable. You can't really tell if she's autistic or if she's just that clammy and socially awkward. And it's also kind of sad in a way. I feel sorry for her character because you can tell that she is really dedicated to her job and like an insane amount of commitment to the point where she just doesn't really have anybody in her life except her bird. She has no husband. Of course, we do find out later on that she was married at a time, and she was unfortunately in an abusive relationship with her husband. But she doesn't have anybody. She doesn't have any family, any friends, or anything like that. All she has is, like I said, her bird, and then her and her bird just watch Survivor every night. Old episodes, new episodes, what have you. And I think in a weird way, this movie kind of speaks to what's going on in terms of people in the real world trying to climb the corporate ladder. Sometimes it doesn't really matter how good you are at your job or how ambitious you are. Every now and then, and to some folks it's more often than not, they essentially get the ladder kicked out from under them because the job that they were pining for, or that job that they really sacrificed everything for, gets handed to somebody who didn't earn it. They didn't have to work for it like these people did, in the case of Linda Little. So I said something in my review of Good Luck, Have Fun, and Don't Die. I said something to the effect that good science fiction speaks to the zeitgeist and the time that the movie was made. Obviously, Send Help is not science fiction, but I would also apply that metric to a good movie. And I think that Send Help actually does a really good job of speaking to people's anxieties in terms of that. It does feel like that nepotism, especially in the film industry, has sort of run amok. But it's also sort of run amok in the halls of the elites, the people that are actually running the business world. It seems that these great corporate empires are just being passed down to future generations that don't seem to appreciate what has been handed to them, and they sort of squander it instead of relying on the knowledge and expertise of those that worked with the previous generations. So what fascinated me about this movie is that it also seemed to be a study in game theory. Two paths of survival instincts. So you have Linda, who is the more practical, who's great at strategizing, and there's this great running joke in the movie that the new boss refers to her as Linda from accounting, but she's actually Linda from strategy and planning. But interestingly enough, the new boss, he is more of a social creature, so he's able to use his emotional intelligence. In this case, we see scenes where he's, plying her with alcohol, and he's able to sort of be relatable, and he's able to get information out of her. So he is looking for emotional pressure points that he could use later on. And, of course, he's an attractive man, and it doesn't seem as if Linda has been with anybody in a while, so he kind of uses that a little bit to his advantage as well. And it's just interesting to see these two clashes. And they literally clash in a physical altercation towards the end of the movie, which is actually pretty brutal and a lot of fun. Pretty bananas, as ye old Gwen Stefani used to sing. And of course, before this builds to a physical altercation, it is interesting to see where these two are successful in their survival strategies, but also where they make really terrible mistakes. I mean, even Linda. I can't give you the full context, but Linda does kill innocent people in order for her and her boss to stay on the island. And her boss's lack of practical knowledge really hurts him from his grand escape plan. So there's one little detail that he missed that sort of makes the whole thing blow up. But I'm going to stop it right there and tell you to go watch the rest of Send Help. I'm not sure that it'll be in theaters by the time this review comes out, but it should be out on digital very soon. So go rent the film if you can, and let me know what you think. Did you happen to see this movie, and did you like it or not like it? Well, comment below. And once again, I appreciate you watching this review of Send Help, and be sure to subscribe to Count Rahoon Presents to get notifications on my next video. But until then, as far as things go when things go bump in the night, there are such things.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And
and
long-legged
long-legged
beasties.
beasties.
And things that go bump in the night. Good Lord!